For most of my career, I've had a philosophy that the way I want to manage a great company or department is with intention. An intention that focuses on the team, empowering them and making thoughtful decisions with data, and then rewarding on the performance of the team. From that, I thought the team could then provide an amazing, consistent experience for the customers, resulting in strong numbers and appropriate growth. Funny enough, this all came from my job in marketing, where I was always looking for that differentiator of what made us better than the competitors. Here was my thinking: create an amazing culture, attracting and creating amazing talent, creating an amazing customer experience, thus creating an amazing differentiator. I've sought out companies that were running differently and succeeding. And one day I was reading the book Small Giants by Bo Burlingham, and I discovered many cool companies, but one of them was Zingermans, a deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan. What captured me was their devotion to a distinct mission and vision for staying local. That led me to take a class from them and then interviewing them for a previous podcast that I used to do many years ago. Everyone there blew me away. And after I started this show, I knew the day would eventually come where I would interview some of the people from there. And so we're going to start out with Ari Weinzweig, co-founder of Zingermans. So let's find out, who is Ari? And just because it's slightly out of our industry, I want to have Ari describe Zingermans and something called ZCOB.
From Chicago, I came to Ann Arbor to go to school at the University of Michigan, studied Russian history and anarchism quite a bit, graduated, didn't want to move home. I needed a job to facilitate financial independence. I had driven a taxi while I was in school, which was fine, but not that interesting. One of my college roommates was waiting tables in a restaurant in downtown Ann Arbor, so I went and applied, not because I loved food or business. I just needed a job. I applied for the same serving job he had. They said they'd call, but they didn't. So after a couple of weeks, I went back and I reapplied as a busboy, thinking I could get promoted if I did good work, which was seemingly a good plan, but once again, they didn't call after the interview, and then I was really running out of money, so I went back a third time, which we now know is called emotional resilience, and I reapplied, and I offered to do anything, and they offered me a job washing dishes, and since I'd never worked in food and knew nothing about the restaurant business, I didn't know you weren't really supposed to want to wash dishes, so I just said, yeah, sounds great, I'll do it, and they said, can you start tomorrow? And I said, yes, and that's how I got going. So I just lucked out. I'd love to tell you a glamorous story about how from the time I was 10 that I loved food and cooking, and my mom was this incredible cook, and all our recipes come from her, and it's so much more inspiring and glamorous. But the truth is my mother was a good person, but not a great cook, and I grew up on Kraft macaroni and cheese, Mrs. Paul's fish sticks, Pop-Tarts, Tang, American Singles, Wonder Bread, Hawaiian Punch, and High C. So I had zero culinary background, and no one in my family was in business, so I didn't even know you could go into business. It wasn't even on the mental menu of things I was considering. Fast forwarding to fall of 1981, after about 4 years working for that restaurant group, I didn't hate my job, but it was also not super inspiring. It was fine. Pay was fine. People were fine. But, even though they didn't write a vision the way we do, I could sense where they were headed was not where I wanted to head. So I was like, time to do something else. So I gave 2 months notice, November 181, unsure of what would be next. And one of those nice stories that actually worked out, because most don't. Paul called me like 2 days later and he's like, hey man, I think you might want to give notice because this building's coming open near the fish market, and he had grown up in Detroit where you could get good deli food, and in Chicago where I grew up you could get it and you couldn't get it here, and we had bounced around the idea off and on over the years of doing something, and within like a week we decided we would open, and 4.5 months later we had renovated the whole space, redone the floors, the walls, made the menu, costed the menu, ordered product, made the signs, got it all there, and we opened on March 15th, 1982. So we're about 43 and a half years in. The original space was 1,300 square feet, 25 sandwiches on the menu, 29 seats, all the old Jewish stuff he and I had both grown up with, and in our respective homes, and then a little bit of what's now called specialty food, but back then was mostly just called weird because nobody knew what it was. And fast forwarding to what year are we in? 2025.
I think so, yeah.
we'll do about 80 million in sales, depending how you count. We have about a dozen different businesses, all located here in Ann Arbor area within about 15 minutes of where I'm sitting at Zing Train, which is our training business right now. And we have about 700 people who work here, and we hire about 400 more at the holidays because we do a lot of mail order. Zingermans.com, and we have about 300 staff who own a share in the business, as well as 18 managing partners. The ZCOB is our contraction for Zingerman's Community of Businesses. It comes out of so we opened in 82, fast forwarding to 1993, so 11 years in business. But one summer morning about this time of day, actually, Paul sat me down on the bench out front of the deli when I should have by all rights been inside getting the sandwich line ready for the lunch rush. And he looks at me and he goes, "Okay, in 10 years, what are we doing?" And I was like, "What?" It's like, "In 10 years, what are we doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I got work to do." And he's like, "No, this is our work." So when we opened the deli in 1982, so visioning is a huge piece of what we do, as you know. When we opened the deli in 1982, like most people, we did not write one down the way we would now do it, for sure. Not because we thought it was a bad idea. We just didn't know you could. But like all people or organizations that get to any kind of modicum of greatness, we had a vision in our heads. What he had, I guess, is a very good intuitive sense that we had attained organizational midlife, or what John O'Donohue, the Irish philosopher, would call a threshold. Everybody listening has been through some. It's where you busted your butt to get somewhere that you sort of self-doubted that you could get to, but then you got there, and then you're like, "Oh no, it's not really done. It's just the beginning." Mm-hmm. His question prompted a year of long walks, long talks, eye rolls, lots of frustration with each other, but continually coming back to the table, as we still do now systemically, to just keep coming back to the table until you figure it out. And we did. And during that year of long walks and long talks, we got to know a guy named Stash Kazmierski. This is all told in a pamphlet that I did called The Story of Visioning at Zingermans. And Stash taught us this process, which we now call visioning. He had learned it from a guy named Ron Lippitt, who worked at the Institute of Social Research here at the university in the late 50s, 60s, 70s. And Ron called it preferred futuring, and we adapted it, what we learned from Stash, and we called it visioning. But it's basically getting clarity from the heart on the future you want to create. So not a strategic analysis of the marketplace and trying to figure it from the outside in, but more, how do you want to feel when you go to work? How do you want the people who work in your organization to feel? How big do you want to be? Because there's no right answer. What are you known for? What do you care about? What's the energy like when it's people engage with your business? And so we wrote our first vision called Zingermans 2009, which for people who are keeping score at home, it was 1994, so we went 15 years in the future, not 10. And in there is where we created the ZCOB, or Zingerman's Community of Businesses. So that the vision described that in 2009, rather than doing the typical open more Zingerman's delis all over, we would create this community of businesses, all located here in the Ann Arbor area. I have a strong belief about doing business where you live. Each would be a Zingerman's business, so it was one organization, but each would have its own unique specialty, so that instead of replicating the deli, we would replicate uniqueness in a paradoxical sense. And that each business would have a managing partner or partners in it who had a real passion for what that business did. So we didn't end up with just, what happens to most places. They open and then the manager's excited, but then they get a scholarship to go to Australia or whatever, and they're gone. And now there's nobody in there that really cares at that deep level that the, passionate founder might have felt. So, and that we would operate as one organization, synergistically, each piece, each element enhancing the others. And we call that the ZCOB.
Welcome to Keeping the Lights On. I'm your host, Todd Reed, and on this podcast, I connect with the owners and pros who design, build, and maintain our electrical, communications, and industrial world to explore the best ways forward. Please take a moment to leave a comment, subscribe, and rate the show, because it helps me know that I'm providing the content that matters most to you, as well as helping attract more listeners like you. This episode is brought to you by Leviton. Now, together with their contractors, integrators, and distributors, like Graybar, Leviton builds what's next to light, power, and connect everyday spaces, encompassing electrical, lighting, data networks, and energy management. With a rich history spanning over 115 years, Leviton develops thoughtful solutions that streamline processes, elevate safety standards, increase efficiency, and enhance productivity. Leviton's committed to their people as their innovation, ingenuity, and dedication to safety and quality are fundamental to the success of every product they deliver to their customers. Click on the links in the show notes to visit Leviton on graybar.com. Let's get into the show. If I or one of the listeners were to visit you in Ann Arbor, where might you take us and why would you choose this place?
Well, I'd take you to one of our places. I'd probably take you to all of them. So the deli, is the good starting point.
Okay.
So all the sandwiches, of course, corned beef pastrami and all myriad other ones. But it's also, all the artisan cheese and olive oil and all that we have. Coffee from our coffee roasting is there. Bread and pastry from the bakehouse. So we go there. Miss Kim is our little Korean restaurant, traditional regional Korean cooking. It's just up the block, so you could go there as well. Amazing food that Ji-Hae Kim, who's the managing partner there and who's from Korea, and she's studied her butt off to make the food amazing. And we could go down the road to the Roadhouse, which is all regional American cooking. We do need to get fried ravioli on there. I need to remind you about that. But anyway, everything from fried chicken to barbecue to macaroni and cheese to a lot of fish, a lot of vegetables from local farmers, all that kind of stuff. And then we could keep going around. So we got our bakehouse, coffee, creamery. Zing Train is where I'm sitting now. So for you, I would definitely take you there because you're very interested in leadership work. Mm-hmm. And then if you were going to get married, we would take you out to Cornman Farms, which is our 1830s farmhouse and barn that we renovated. And we do events out there. And then I would probably send you for your wedding present on a Zingermans food tour to go to Spain or France or Korea or Ireland or something like that.
Okay. That's cool. I didn't know you did that. It's a new thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect day. I'm going to start with the Roadhouse for breakfast and then go to the deli for lunch and then Miss Kim's for dinner.
You got it.
Maybe stop by the Candy Factory still?
Yeah.
Go there and get some.
The selection's getting better all the time, man.
I bet. So we're not going to be talking about how to make sandwiches and do all that stuff.
No.
I don't think an electrician's going to be like, well, that's cool, but,
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about the 12 natural laws of business. And even with that, we're not going to cover all 12. In fact, I'm going to might have to cut some of them out because of time, but we're going to start with Law 1. And what are the key components of a strategically sound vision?
Well, we would say it's inspiring and strategically sound because strategically sound means in our language that you have a reasonable shot at getting to the vision. So saying, I'm just going to do what I did today, tomorrow is probably strategically sound, but not very inspiring. Conversely, saying our organization is perfect, we make gazillions of dollars and everyone's happy and the product gets better every day is a great fantasy, but we're not going to make that happen either because there's always problems and some of us aren't happy. So there's a creative tension between inspiring and strategically sound. But we have 4 elements of which, as you know, those are 2 that we use to describe what a effective vision is. The third for us is that it's written down. Again, I know most people don't do this. We didn't do it in 82, but I think it's way more powerful. It holds, for many reasons. It's if you have staff, it's infinitely easier for them to know where you're going. If you're recruiting, it's way easier for people to tell whether they want to work with you. If you are like me and every 5 minutes you have a new idea, that's great, but the vision helps you hold course. In the trades context, it's a little like the blueprint for the house. It may take a few years to get the whole thing built, but you know what you're doing. If the owner of the home that you're building wants to pay you to change the blueprint every 6 months, you can do it. It's more costly, and it's not really going to get done in an effective way, but it can be done. And I think the same is true with visioning. Like, you can write a vision and change it every year, but the power is really in declaring to the world where you want to go. And because it's from the heart, it's not like picking something you don't really want but think you should pick. It's really designing the future of your own choice. So for those and dozens more reasons, it's very powerful. And I don't say this lightly, but it changed my life. And I feel pretty confident saying I wouldn't be here on this call with you, Todd, if we hadn't used it, because without, like, the 2009 vision that you asked about, the Zingermans community of businesses stuff, that came out of our own hearts and heads after like months of conversation. But no consultant would have come up with that because it didn't exist. So we wrote the future that we wanted, not pick off a multiple choice menu of 5 key options that everybody else picks, and by creating our own future, I think the buy-in and the energy around it was much higher. Just like if you're playing your own, songs, or you're making your own art and not painting by numbers off somebody else's. And it's like, well, you could paint by numbers and make more money selling a lot of them cheap, but it's not that, for me, it's not that inspiring. And to be clear, Ted, too, for people who don't know, I mean, we write vision for everything. So it's not just the organization, but each business within our organization, within the ZCOB, writes a vision. Projects start with a vision. People write personal vision. Some of the businesses write shift visions, et cetera.
Okay. So writing a vision has helped you get to where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing you talked about when I was there visiting you all at one time, and you're not the only one that said it, but you can have the vision, you can have all these great things that Zingermans you have, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And,
no.
And it's tough. And
everything's hard, which is fine. I mean, pick your metaphor. Like, no farming is easy. Nobody wins the NBA or WNBA championship and it's easy. Nobody gets to the Olympics and it's easy. Nobody raises a kid and it's easy. Like, it's all hard. It's just, I wrote a big book on, as you know, on beliefs, not religion, but like what we believe about everything in our lives. And so people have been led to believe that work shouldn't be hard, and then they're frustrated all the time. I look at it like, of course it's hard. How can you do anything great that's not hard? Like,
yeah,
I don't know whether it's, social change or whether it's developing new wiring for an electrical system, but somebody did a lot of work to make it happen. And I embrace that. Like, it's supposed to be hard. The key is not to make it not hard. It's to find work that you want to work hard at. And part of the problem is people are working at work they don't really like. And then at that point, you want it to be easier because you don't even like doing it in the first place. But, if you're LeBron James or Michael Jordan or, I don't know, whatever, Caitlin Clark, and you're playing basketball, like, you love the game of basketball. Like, it's what you want to do. And it doesn't mean you don't take a day off or hang with your family or sleep in once a year. But the point is, like, you love basketball. And so when you do that, you're not trying to make it easier. They're actually trying to make it harder.
Yeah.
They try to get into playoffs. It's harder. They work out more. It's harder. They study more game film. It's harder. But it's harder by their own choice and their own design. And I think that's really the key.
So, yeah. So can you share an example of when having that clear vision, it was tough to have that vision and it made a significant difference in, like, even just day-to-day work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does every day, because once you have it, it allows you to say no to things that don't fit the vision without a lot of aggravation. So following my metaphor, if the vision is the blueprint for your dream home and, whatever, you're building mid-century modern style and somebody comes with a great plan, to build Gothic, and there's a government subsidy for Gothic design. I don't know, It's sort of like, well, no, I'm not doing that because we're 30% of the way in and I love mid-century modern and that's how we started, and it's the same here. So when people call and they want us to open in St. Louis or San Francisco, it's a 5-minute conversation. We don't need to study it. We already decided that we're not doing that. When we whatever it is. I mean, like we have a whole section of our 2032 vision that's a whole new thing for us, which is working with young people. So not about hiring 17-year-olds, which we've always done and still do, and have some amazing teenagers working with us. But this is more about teaching our content, like what I'm sharing with you today, with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds. And right now, actually, 50 feet behind me is day 4 of a summer camp that Zing Train, our training business, and Bake, which is our home baking school, have collaborated on. I think it's the second year, where they got, I don't know, 30, whatever they are, 12, 13-year-olds or something in this summer camp for a week. They bake in the afternoon, and they learn, energy and leadership and appreciation in the morning. And it's awesome, right? So that came out of that vision. And it doesn't mean it could never have just spontaneously happened, but by writing the vision and describing we're going to do this, then everybody in the organization knows we've committed to doing that, and then they all can start thinking of how they're going to do it.
Hey, a quick word from our sponsor, Leviton. One idea back in 1906 powered and connected the way for many, igniting years of innovation and adaptation for Leviton, and it all began with a single gas mantle tip. As industries have evolved, Leviton has been with you every step of the way. Together, they make it happen by addressing hot topics, anticipating changing market dynamics, and meeting stringent industry regulations. Rising to the challenge, Leviton's team has grown to include a global reach so they can support you no matter where you are. For now and into the future, Leviton will continue to listen, collaborate, and participate with industry stakeholders, and then manufacture innovative controls, lighting, electrical, and network solutions that are going to meet the changing needs of the built environment. The result, each product Leviton brings to market will be designed to seamlessly integrate into your daily life. At Leviton, they like to say, we make it happen. All right, let's talk about Law 3. Without good finances, you fail. Now, that's a no-brainer. It seems like a no-brainer, and I don't think most business owners violate this on purpose.
Right.
But, I've been a part of, and you see companies all the time shutter for poor finances.
Yep.
So how do you see owners violating this law?
Well, I mean, it's hard to make it work. It's hard. We read constant stories about people flipping their companies for gazillions of dollars. And so we start to assume that belief is, or that reality is a common reality, but I would suggest it's a not common reality. And that for 99% of us, in a good way, it's work your butt off and try to make sure there's a little more at the bottom line than there was, the year before. In our industry, it's never easy. The profit margin in food is very small, even when it's good. I'm not complaining. That's what we embrace. We're not in high tech where supposedly people run these giant numbers. Here every cup of coffee matters, and every little bit matters. So we're always working on that. How have you seen people fail? Well, sometimes the business model doesn't work. I mean, it's not like they designed it that way, but sometimes there's just not, they're not getting enough business. Sometimes they're not doing the work to take care of customers in an amazing way so that people keep coming back and choose you when they could instead choose one of the 25 other places that are doing something comparable. Other things that can happen. They don't price properly. People make up prices mostly based on what their competition is charging, which if the competition is charging the wrong price and you copy them, now you're charging the wrong price. If you're giving amazing service experience, you probably need to charge more. People often undercharge. Then they're stressed and can't get their bills paid. But it's like I just sat in one of our meetings advocating again the same thing, like charge more, invest more into making the service experience amazing, differentiate yourself, blow people away. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's way more fun. And it's more fun for the client. So those are all reasons. Also, people don't do good. They don't keep their books effectively if it's a small business. So if you're not doing cash flow projections, you're not keeping a P&L. It's a little like playing basketball all year and hoping that the numbers work out at the end. Don't recommend that. And then one tactical thing that we do, I don't know how many people listening have staff, but we're open book management. So that means that we share the numbers with everybody, and then that we want them, if we can get them to participate in helping run the business, and they need to see the numbers for that. So when the sales are good, people know. When the sales are bad, people know. When the profit's good, they know, and they get something. When the profit's bad, they know. And so, if you're on a basketball team and your team's losing by 20, it's a bad feeling, but the hope is you're then motivated to play harder or more effectively in the next game, and oftentimes the solutions to the problems, sure, the owner might have insight, but so too do the other people, and most systems are not designed to help make that happen.
Okay. Let's touch on open book management really quick. Yeah. I know it's a huge topic, but
because it comes from Missouri.
That's right. Springfield. It's I need to talk to that. It's funny. I was just thinking about that. I need to talk to that group down there.
Yeah. I'm keynoting at their conference.
Oh, okay.
In September.
In St. Louis, or are they holding that now?
No, they do it in Dallas now.
Oh, that's right. They moved that. Well, can you touch on just briefly?
Yeah.
How do you define open book management for ZCOB, and kind of how do you implement that?
Well, we adapted it from them. So I give them credit for teaching us. And then we've, again, adapted like we did the visioning to make our own version our own. Mm-hmm. Basically, that's what I said. It's about involving anybody who's interested in helping to run the business. In order to run the business, they need some numbers. So what open book is not is the accountant comes to a meeting and reads the profit and loss statement to the employees who roll their eyes, fall asleep, and spend the whole time on their phone scrolling. This is where they're participating in running the business. In order to do that, they need to know the key metrics, and every industry, and even within our own organization, has different metrics, because what works in electrical might be irrelevant in baking, But the point is, it's not reading the whole P&L. It's 10, 15 metrics. I like to describe it as like, if you were at a basketball game and you went to the bathroom and came back, what are the key numbers you need to know when you get back? Like, you don't need to know the point guard's shooting percentage, 3-point shots when, under 2 minutes to play. Like, you might be curious and you could look it up. But when you come back from the bathroom, you mostly want to know the score, how much time is left, key fouls, and that's what would be on your scoreboard, 10 or 15 items. And then we share responsibility for those through the business. So different people, in quotes, own different lines, and their responsibility is to report on the line, the content, to forecast what's coming. And forecast is a leadership act, so not a prediction, but where you're committing to getting to. And then they're responsible for delivering on the results. So it could be in our work that a server owns the line for check average at the Roadhouse. Well, that person is also responsible for getting their peer group to do better to hit the goals. So it doesn't mean they're responsible alone. We're all responsible, but they become the leader. So you're spreading leadership, you're spreading power, you're spreading information, you're bringing in more information from across the organization. It's a really great system. I don't think the old system actually makes any sense, because I've been saying basketball over and over. It's a little like you're playing basketball, but only the coach knows the score. The team just get yelled at to play harder all the time, but after a while that gets a little old. This is where they know the score, and they may not like the score, but at least they're aware of what's going on, because what's happening is you and me and most people listening to this are in the back room stressing out about how we're going to pay the bills. Yep. Meanwhile, the staff is convinced you have so much money that you don't know what to do with it. And so that disparity or incongruity of information is causing enormous stress, in an unhealthy way. Like, what's appropriate is everybody's stressed because we're losing, not the coach is stressed because they're losing and the players are stressed because they think they're winning, but the coach is acting like they're losing.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting is nowadays you hear more and more of the athletes themselves are learning what stats to look at themselves, and really data diving. And so I can understand when I'm playing Ari, I know how he moves, and so I can defend or shoot or whatever. Moneyball type of stuff. Exactly. Yeah, I love that whole thing. I love the line ownership and by a line, we mean a line in the financials, not a line cook, although it's important too.
That's important too. And just to be clear, we measure on 3 bottom lines here. So great food, great service, and great finance. So Different businesses will have different metrics, and there's often things like I mentioned, check average in the restaurant. It's not on a profit and loss statement anywhere, but it's a key metric. So there might be metrics that are critical to the effectiveness of our work, but they're not on any financial statements. So this isn't in lieu of the financial statements, but those are like sort of the detailed historical records that, you and your accounting or bookkeeper, want to have. They're really important, but this is more the scorecard for the people who are out on the field or the court every day playing the game.
Well, they're key numbers that drive the bottom line number. Like I remember reading a story about in the book where I discovered you all, Small Giants, a billion years ago. There was a theater, and the butts in the seats were the key number there.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, if you have 10 people or what, that's not huge, but it impacts the bottom line. Anyway.
Yep.
Okay. Law 4. People do their best work when they're part of a great organization.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are a couple key characteristics that make an organization great to work for?
Well, I mean, I think everybody can define for themselves, but, again, it's convenient to use sports, but I mean, if you're on a losing team, it's hard to, like in the beginning, you might still come in early and stay late to work out, but if no one else is doing it and you're going to lose anyway, after a while, it just becomes hard to hold that motivation. Conversely, when you're on a team where everybody's trying to do great work, whether it's in electrical or food or basketball or poetry, it doesn't matter. Like it's inspiring to like if you're doing great, I want to do great. Like nobody wants to, not fit in. And so in a healthy organizational culture where people care, where dignity matters, where humility matters, those are the things we're reinforcing. And what I would suggest is an unhealthy culture. It's like super competitive. People are hurt badly because others are trying to destroy them or beat them down in the belief that it's building themselves up. Or there's apathy is widely spread, so people really don't care. All of which in quotes seems to your earlier question like less work, but it's actually exhausting. Whereas the people who are working their butts off at something they believe in, yeah, it's hard, but it's fun and they want to do it. And when you're around other people who are like that, you want to do well too.
Can you share something that you changed over the years that significantly improved, just to use the term that people use a lot to define this, engage the employees more? It's not really what we're talking about, but it ties to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think all these things do. So open book, a big thing is that in addition to open book, is that, 25 years ago now, just sort of mostly, to be honest, by accident, we sort of made all our meetings open. So I say all in quotes because there's certainly, private HR meetings or whatever.
Sure.
But the point is that we default to opening them, not to closing them. And so, yes, there's meetings that are closed, but it's because somebody sat there and was like, really, we need this to be in private because it's got to be confidential.
Sure.
As opposed to most settings where they're all closed unless once in a while you have an open one. And you might say, what's the difference? And I'm going to tell you it's the same as what we talked about with the finance. Like, we don't know what we're doing. like maybe people listening already know, but I don't know what I'm doing and I'm trying to figure it out. And most people that I've talked to in my decades of doing this, they're all just trying to figure it out. And so there's a lot of wisdom that diversity dictates will be present in the staff. Like, not everybody will have a great idea, but my ideas aren't always great either, and so so getting a few more voices in the room and can help. And then similarly, when they're locked out of the room, they're spending a lot of time making up these super creative but totally inaccurate stories about what you're doing in the room they're locked out of. And it's like, okay, dude, come on, and so instead of complaining, it's like, show up. Well, I'm busy. Well, then, all right, then don't complain, but it's essentially calling people's bluff in a healthy, positive way, which is to just say, okay, come on in the room, let's go. And I think that's really helped quite a bit.
Okay.
And to be clear, most people don't go, but I think there's a big difference between choosing not to go and being prohibited from going.
Yep. Yeah. Law 5. If you want the staff to give great service to customers, the leaders have to give great service to the staff. You give a couple of practical examples of how your leadership
Well, it's
provides
fairly
excellent service?
straightforward, more than most people would like it to be. It's not metaphorical, it's real. When I come to work like I am now, I just look at the people who work here like my customers. And, to be clear, there's customers I've been waiting on for 30, 40 years. So it's not like I act like the butler when they come in. I might tease them or curse with them or make fun of their shirt or, have fun. But I need to always remember that if they start complaining, I got to get back. I can't act like it's my cousin. I need to act like it's a customer. And so, I know people mostly won't believe it, but I'm a total shy, awkward introvert. It's just, I learned this because it got hard to lead a large organization without talking to anybody. But, the reality is when I see a new employee, I would prefer that they don't see me and I don't have to talk to them. Like, it's far less stressful. But then I remind myself, like, if I don't greet them, I'm not giving them good service. Just like if I ignored a customer, I would be giving them bad service. So I need to just do what I try to do. Take a deep breath, walk over, stick my hand out and say, hi, I'm Ari, which for the extroverts is like, well, what's the big deal? But the introverts listening will be like, no, I get it. And so, all day long that's happening. And then similarly, whatever process or recipe or framework you have, and if you don't have one, I recommend you get one. And the Zingerman's Guide to Giving Great Service book has ours, but some format for dealing with guest client complaints, right? And so that's what we teach with customers. Well, I need to use that with the staff too.
Hopefully business. Law 7.
Yeah.
Successful businesses do the things the others know they should do, but generally don't. You have an example of something that Zingerman's done that perhaps your competitors didn't do?
Well, there's millions of them. I mean, that's our whole story. So it's just constantly improving the product, is one. Like, so we make, everybody knows if you get a lot of complaints to improve it, right? But there's a whole nother side of improvement, which is nobody complained, but you're improving it anyway. Because it can be better, and that's what you're driven to do, and then you're willing to charge more because you made it better. And that's just one example, but yeah, I mean, at the bakehouse starting to mill grains in-house, it's not like anybody asked us to do it. But it definitely has increased the quality of the bread and pastry. The Roadhouse just upgraded the butter in the biscuits, which are already one of the best sellers. And are delicious, and you could have them when you come for breakfast. And now we're making them with the Vermont Creamery cultured butter, which is remarkably good butter, and made them even better still. So they were already really great. People weren't complaining, but we just took a step to add, to upgrade an ingredient, which makes a meaningful difference. So it's all of that. It's going back to the customer table one more time. It's calling a catering client 2 weeks before the event to just say, hey, I just was thinking about you, anything you need before we get to the actual event. From a leadership standpoint, it's reading more books, it's listening to podcasts, it's having awkward conversations. It's just life is filled with all these things. And if, I'm not judging, but there's places that people, we all choose to spend our time where we choose to spend our time, and it's a free choice, right? And so, like when I spoke at a class on campus a couple of years ago, and I was like, well, if you spent 2 hours less on social media every day, that would be 700 hours at the end of the year. In 10 years, it's 7,000 hours that you could have invested in reading books and learning new skills instead of scrolling Facebook. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just deciding where you want to put your time, just like when you're going out to eat, you could decide you want a really delicious, healthful meal, or you could decide you're going, like I grew up going to fast food. It's not inherently evil, but the impact in the long run is huge. And Carol Sanford, whose work I really love, passed away in December in her 80s, but she would, calls a lot of this as indirect work. So most of us have been raised to focus on direct work, like wear blue shirts, sales will go up 9%. But there's the other part of the work, which is indirect, which is teach people about dignity. And then over time, it changes the way they feel about themselves. It changes the way they deal with their coworkers. It changes the way they deal with guests. It changes the way they deal with their family so they feel better at home. But there's no thing like you teach dignity, and employee engagement increases 4.8% in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important thing for people listening. If you're going to do any of this kind of stuff, often takes a long time,
In fact, that's a natural law.
Oh, that's one we're not going to cover, but there you go. We got a free one there.
Well, we just covered it.
I guess I'm curious on like the butter example. Let's just go to that one for a second.
Yeah.
Because here was going to be my question. I was going to ask when I wrote it down, before we met. How do you discover one of these things and then implement? Because you said someone complains. Okay, so now we need to look into something.
Right.
Well, I'm guessing no one complains necessarily about the biscuit. So
no.
How do you even discover these things that people aren't doing? Like what? And you kind of mentioned it, kind of with the dignity thing.
Well, that's our work.
Goes really deep.
Our work is just to keep learning. So if you're doing natural law number 7, you're doing all these little extra things. Then you're like,
okay,
reading about food. You're studying other menus. You're thinking about it. You're reflecting on it. You're, to your point about vision, it's also about values. So in our guiding principles, one of them is about food, of course, and in that we define what quality means to us. It's not that others need to use our definition, but it means full flavor in traditional food. So if you can make the food more full flavored and you can go back to more traditional stuff, those generally are going to help us go in a more interesting direction. So 150 years ago, most butter was cultured. It means that you leave the cream out overnight to ripen like yogurt or cheese. And now hardly anybody does, but we work with Vermont Creamery in Websterville, Vermont, and they're making great butter. And so if we want, it's way more flavorful, it's higher butter fat. So if we want more flavorful biscuits in this case, or also it's in the butterscotch pudding and it's in the grits and it's in the mashed potatoes now, and it goes out with the bread from the bakehouse when we serve that. Like, you got to go to the better product. It just tastes better. It's more traditional. The only reason cultured butter went away is because technology allowed people through refrigeration and cream separators to avoid skip the step of letting the cream naturally rise to the top, right? Everybody knows that saying, but nobody knows what it means. But it actually does rise to the top. And so the cultured butter tastes better flavor, more traditional, supporting a local in their own community vendor who's working with local Vermont farms. When you come in to eat, you're going to open that biscuit and you're going to smell it, and it's going to be like, whoa. And then you're going to taste it, and it's great. And then we serve it with more of that butter. And when you go somewhere else and get a biscuit, this is strategic too, because when you go somewhere else and get a biscuit, it would have seemed fine, except now you ate this one, and you're going to go, yeah, it's not as good.
How does Zingerman's approach to continuous improvement, really impact your operations? And you've touched on it in 7, so now I'm kind of curious. How are 7 and why?
Well,
how are they different?
7 fed into it, but you could do the little extra things that don't necessarily make you continuous improvement. So, like calling a customer to check on their order is awesome service, but I wouldn't say it's improvement. It's just
okay,
right. Reading a book but not doing anything with it is doing a little extra thing, but you haven't converted it into something. So,
gotcha.
The continuous improvement is just the obvious. Like, what I knew last year is now less valuable because there's a lot more to have been learned, and other people have learned stuff. People's nostalgic memories of the deli in 1982 lead them to say stuff like the sandwiches were so good it's never been the same. But I know it's just not true. We've upgraded the quality of every ingredient, I think, other than one, on that sandwich. And so it's a better sandwich by far 40 years later. And that didn't come from customer complaint, although it could have. It just came from us going, well, let's find a better quality sauerkraut that's naturally fermented. Let's open a bakery where we can bake bread that's more flavorful, more traditional rye bread. Let's, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it's always pushing ourselves to get better. So that's self-improvement as a leader, but it's also product or service quality.
Yeah, I guess I kind of, when I think of continuous improvement, and maybe because it's in my world more, I think about the operations of the business, how you're actually getting that sandwich.
Well, we do that too. We do that too.
Okay.
And we use a lot of lean. And I was just in a meeting where they were talking about that, but we do that also.
Yeah.
That's a system that's designed for systems improvement.
Yeah. And you have
I guess
either a
is what I
book
would
or
describe.
a pamphlet on that, I believe.
I don't, but Tom
Oh.
Root, who's one of the partners at Mail Order, teaches lean all over the place, and he has a booklet that he co-wrote on that.
Okay.
I have one on our bottom line change process.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Which is our organizational change recipe, which is not opposed to lean, but it's not about lean per se. It's about our recipe, which involves as many people as possible in the interest of bringing more diverse voices into the conversation before you decide, instead of the old model, which is where you tell them at the end and everybody freaks out.
So, yeah, and it could kind of tie into that because maybe that result of that continuous improvement process means something that's going to have to change, and so it can tie into that. Okay, that's what I was thinking about. All right, Ari, we're to our last question. I mean, I love it. Like I said, we could spend a lot of time, but one last one here. So I always like to close it out by refocusing on the why of what we do. So what motivates you to do this day in and day out? What keeps you excited and passionate about what you do?
Well, everybody's different, so people are motivated by different things. For me, impacting people's lives positively, learning, having fun, making a difference, doing cool work, making something special that nobody else is doing. All of those and more are awesome. And the impact on people's lives comes everywhere from like the way we serve them at the counter to bringing, like the other night at the Roadhouse, there was a little kid who had, I don't know, played soccer or whatever, and he was there with his mother and his grandmother, right? So I was walking by the table I pour water every night. It's sort of my regrounding into reality. So anyway, they were looking at the menu, and I said, can I answer any questions? And his mother goes, yeah, help me figure out how to get him to eat some protein and order something besides. I asked him what he could do, and he goes, tell my mother to let me order buttered noodles. And I was like, okay. And she goes, well, he's been playing sports all day and he needs protein. And I was like, well, why don't you get some protein on top of your buttered noodles? Like, what do you like? We could put chicken on there, steak, fish, And she goes, well, he loves shrimp. I'm like, awesome. We got these wild caught shrimp from the North Carolina coast. And dude, with that cultured butter that I just talked about and the Mancini pasta, which is the only farmstead pasta maker in Italy on the East Coast in the Marche, so they grow the heirloom wheat and make the pasta. In your world, be interested in the bronze dye extrusion that makes the really rough sandpaper-like surface that you want. I'm like, that's a world-class meal, and you're 10 years old. So wild-caught shrimp, cultured butter from Vermont, and farmstead pasta from the East Coast of Italy. I'm like, dude, I would eat that any day. He's like, you said dude. I'm like, yeah, whatever. He goes, this is odd, so like, and then he loved it. So the mother's happy. He ate protein. He's happy. He had this, 10 years old, and he had this world-class meal and better shrimp than he's going to get anywhere else around. Everybody wins. And it's a business thing too, because where's he going to get that? Nowhere. So that means a 10-year-old's probably a lifetime customer now.
Nice. Love it. Ari, I just get energized every time I talk to you, and I've watched a few videos. You're in a million things now. And Zingermans has their own YouTube channel, which I'm going to link to, which is pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
So thank you so much for this. I'll let you appreciate your time, and we'll...
and you'll put the link to the books and to the e-news also, and you're welcome to put my email if people want to reach out.
Yeah, that was my conversation with Ari Weinzweig, co-founder of Zingermans. You can connect with Ari and see what's happening over at Zingermans by heading to the links in the show notes. Hey, I would love to hear an unusual place where you've been inspired and then made changes to how you run your organization. Send me an email at podcast@graybar.com or leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help us grow this show by subscribing and leaving a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast player or YouTube. Thanks for listening to this episode of Keeping the Lights On. We'll see you next time.